Well, good afternoon, everyone. Thanks for joining us. We're certainly open to taking questions. We've been working as of last week and have now in our third meeting of setting down, trying to make sure that we are investing in the Minnesota that Minnesotans want, a place where all children get that quality education, where health care is affordable and the outcomes we're getting are the best in the nation, and that every community is prosperous. And we're looking for the next generation of not trying to look just for tomorrow, but how do we make sure we make a sustainable investments, whether it be in water infrastructure or whether it be in those community parks that local folks, if given the resources, can make the decisions. So certainly open for some questions.
How's it feel in there? What's the tone, in your opinion?
Yeah, I think it's really positive in terms of there's a cordialness. I think the relationship building and the trust that we've tried to build over this session is something that Minnesotans expect. I talked about it having been through a statewide election in all corners of the state. One of the things that people said over and over and over again, the idea of working together for the betterment of Minnesota is something that's really important to them, about try and find a place where you can agree on things.
Senator Gazelka just said very bluntly a gas tax increase will not happen, and he does not want to take that money that's now being diverted from the auto sales tax away, because it took 10 years to get to that point. Your response?
Well, again, we know is not a plan. As we said again, their plan invests no new money into transportation above what the base is that's there. It lets us fund one new road project as opposed to the 500 and the long-term generational change. Minnesotans are very clear that they want to have safe roads, bridges, transit to make a difference. They want us to think about and plan for the future. And I proposed a sustainable, solid plan to try and get there. But as I've said, and this is a big difference, I said I'm willing to work with them. I'm willing to talk to them about how we get there, because I'm talking and walking them through how we did our budgeting based on evidence-based budgeting, based on best practices from Pew Research, and coming up with this idea that we set our budgeting targets on what Minnesotans needed. What would it take to make sure that the special ed cross-subsidy doesn't drain off from our schools? What would it take to keep the 4,000 pre-K spots, not plus them up, but keep them flat with knowing that the return is massive on that? What would it take to give school administrators like in Rochester, who are waiting for us to get this done, the resources necessary to deliver that high-quality education? They, when I ask, how did you come up with your number, don't tell me, because it is an arbitrary number that they've set ideologically. And so this idea on, no, we're not going to do this, they have to answer the question, how do the resources that you're proposing, and no scenario that they put out, does it keep pace with what Minnesota needs to do to keep a high-quality, safe transportation system? So that is an ongoing discussion.
Are you optimistic that some kind of...
By the end of the day, according to this agreement that was sent?
I think these things are fluid. We'll see. Our goal is to try and do that. I think some of the disappointment on our side comes from the stymied debate that should have happened publicly in the conference committees. These should have organically came up. And I tell you this, is we're in there. The House is at $900 million in investments on E12. We're at $700. The Senate is at $200. Now, for me, it's a challenge, because I'm trying to ask them, what's your number? Where's a number between 9 and 2, and see how we can live with that? And I can't get an answer. And what I said is that I have to assume that number is higher for you, because your chairwoman in the Senate said it needed to be higher. So how come we can't start talking, where does that look like? So I'm a little bit, I think the problem lies in, I can give them a number. I'm not quite sure the Senate, one senator can go back and speak for those other 35 who seem to be sending a different message about their targets. And so we're asking them to go back to them. We're asking them to allow the conference committees to continue to work. Listen in public what this means. Listen to what the three proposals mean, what they look like for Minnesota in terms of the outcomes for their lives, and look like what the fiscal numbers look like because of that. That's the part that's not really happening. And I think that's the frustration I've had for the last 4 months, that the healthy discussion that should have happened in large conference committees and Senate floor votes didn't happen. So at this point in time, I'm still trying to get them to say where you're trying to get to, and why and how, because I think it's really important that they've said they're going to put $200 million into E12. Not a single school district has supported them that was there. Not a single piece of the evidence that I put in front of them on evidence-based budgeting supports the position of where they put their money. So why did you decide to cut all the pre-K slots? Is it because you believe it'll make Minnesota a smarter, better prepared state? Do you believe it's going to save money? Because the evidence base shows it will do neither of those things. It will do just the opposite. So I'm still a little bit, we got time, but that's a sticking point.
So, Governor, how do you agree on numbers? How do you agree on numbers if you can't agree on the revenue source? Is it impossible to set targets if you're not agreeing on revenue and taxes behind those targets?
Well, I think they go about it the wrong way. I think you need to set about what are the necessities, what you need. When I'm doing a house budget, if I know I need a new water heater, I go check what it costs. If I know I need new windows, I'll go check what they cost. If the water heater is the priority, you buy it first, you wait for the windows, and you put that in there. None of those things went into the budgeting because I know they set their numbers by just coming up with a zero revenue, and then everything went from there. And then when they threw that out to their chairs, the chairs had to say, well, we know this isn't the real number, it needs to be higher. So your question is well taken. That's what I keep asking for. What does that look like? And when there's an unspoken discussion happening that they are predicating their numbers on the reinstitution of the provider tax, while at the same time simultaneously saying they're not for the provider tax, even though they're predicating their numbers on that it came back in, that makes it a little bit apples to boulders discussion. So that's a part that's still happening. Thanks, everybody. So, thank you all.
Thank you.